What I'm going to do is, in the first part of the presentation, we have an hour, I will present to you certain stats drawn from research, and these are hardcore, numbers that researchers are presenting to us to reflect on. And I think we owe it to the people that we minister to know what their reality is, what their life situations are. And in the second part, I'll summarize for you Christus Vivit, and I think it's a phenomenal document. There are a lot of criticisms that are coming in as well, but we lay that aside. But we look at what's the positives, that this document has to offer us and take it forward from there on. And finally, after the group discussion, we'll come back, we'll put it all together, and we'll look at certain aspects of our ministry where we can actually get youth friendly. The Holy Father said, go wreak havoc. Go wreak havoc. Now, yesterday, the youth of my parish put out a teaser. We are celebrating Youth Month. August is, the second Sunday of August is supposed to be National Youth Day. And in my parish, we're celebrating it tomorrow. So we've been having a month-long program, all kinds of competitions, different kinds of things. They put out a teaser. And so I said, why don't you put this, go wreak havoc? And one youth looked at me and said, aren't we doing it? I said, in the right way. And how do we get them to do it the right way? The Holy Father has some suggestions, and I think we could, look at it and say how we could allow our youth to actually wreak havoc in our lives and see how that would work out. Yeah, that's first one, sister, CRI. Yeah, that's one. So, having said all of that, I'll start and get right into what I want to tell you all. Today, we are looking at some situations in our country, particularly, and in our world, where youth seem to be newsmakers for all kinds of wrong reasons, and I don't even have to elaborate on that. Look at the lynchings, and you get to see those images. All of them are youngsters in their 20s. That's scary. Today we have two men running the country. I have no qualms of conscience to call them the most horrible people on planet Earth. Mass murderers, really. And how did they ever get elected? And how in the world are they allowed to pass laws that will affect 1 billion plus people? Now, these are scary times. Now, that's one part of the story. But then we have to see how our young today are being affected by everything that social media feeds them on a regular basis. In fact, with stunning regularity. Almost every day we wake up to images and videos and news that are not just scary but scandalous, and most importantly, very influential in how you begin to process information and what you do with it after. So, having said that, I want to just give you some numbers that will help us to understand where we will all make sense of what is happening with our youth. I had a video of a song, but I'll just skip that one. The Holy Father said the youth are the now of God, and that's a very powerful statement to make. The now of God. Is he trying to tell us that God is in the youth that we need to experience now? Because we are not going to postpone our experience with God for later. Now, having listened to the Pope in many, many ways, I'm going to present to you a situation that all of us are familiar with. Some of this research is very much part of Bangalore because NIMHANS has been part of the research study. NIMHANS, the National Institute of Mental Health Science in Koramangala, not very far from here. It's an institute of excellence, considered to be one of the top mental health institutions in the world, together with IPAS in Delhi. Now, even before we get to what they tell us, the youth today are facing 4 storms or 4 challenges. And I think these 4 challenges are affecting them and leaving them in a state that all of us are able to see. Now, what are these four mega trends? The first one that we've all talked about is globalization, the changing demographics of India. I will give you numbers so you will get to understand how India is changing itself. And then technology. Do I even have to talk about it? And then the changing values and attitudes. Talk about globalization. It's a process of international integration. Today, youngsters are fascinated by everything that is Western. Gone are the times when we waited, for somebody to come from the Gulf or somewhere outside the country for a bar of soap, or for a bottle of shampoo, or a perfume, or some electronic gadget. Today, the best is available in India. In fact, some often claim that the products here are cheaper and much better. There was a time when we looked up to America for products that Apple made, and today Apple is making it in India, and they're saying these products are fascinating and good, and that's what the news is. So we will soon be getting iPhones made in India. In fact, the ones that are to be released, in just a couple of months will be products that were made in India. Did you even think that would be possible? It is now. So globalization has brought in not just technology or gadgets or consumer goods to India, but it has allowed us to interact with people from across the globe. If you walked into a Whitefield mall, you would see a lot of people of different races. You will see whites and blacks and browns and yellows. And this was not the case before. When I was growing up, if you saw a white man walk on the street, you stand and look and say, "Ooh, foreigner." Today, foreigners are like, just another man, another woman. So globalization has brought us to rub shoulders with people of different races. So these forces include all of it: religion, politics, economics, you name it, you got it. What about demographics? India is the second most populous country in the world. By the 2011 census, we were 1.21 billion. Now, rough estimates project the numbers to be 1.4 billion, almost a billion and a half, which is more than the sixth of the world's population. Now, India is also projected to be the world's most populous country by 2030. So we will be the biggest nation on earth. 50% of our population is below the age of 25. Now, give it a thought. If half of India's population is below 25, half our churches on Sunday mornings should have 25 and less, children and youth. Where are they? Have you ever asked that question? I stand there and look at my congregation and say, where are the children? Where are the youth? And look at the other numbers. More than 65% are below the age of 35, which means the vast majority of our congregation must be youthful. And today, people have a problem when you have a youth mass in a regular scheduled mass. And they say, why can't you have a separate youth mass? Hey, the vast majority are young, for God's sake. So why do you have a problem when we cater to them? I take, for example, I have a 9:30 mass in my parish. It's in English, and I mandate that all children must attend the English mass because all of them are going to English medium schools. So I talk to them every Sunday morning. The sermon is first directed towards them, 10 to 12 minutes, a story, a moral, a lesson. And then I address the rest of the congregation. Initially, there was a young man who came up to me and said, "Father Paul, you're not doing us any favor. We come to listen to you. You should speak to us, have a children's mass." I said, "Is there not a child in you? Should we not be talking to our children more? So we get them prepared for what is to come?" And his dad, who was standing right next to him, tells him, "Hey, don't grow up too fast. Don't grow up too fast." So we do have to think about these changing demographics in India and in the church. Technology, oh my God. Should we even stop to ponder what we are in for in the next few years? Virtual reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning are here to stay. Every day when you open up your Facebook, if you have a Facebook account, every bit of post that appears on your smartphone screen is tailored to your taste, because you browsed through a couple of posts yesterday. Today, similar kind of posts appear. I just want to show you a little video. Do we have a sound on that? You can plug it in. Oh, sorry, it's not working. It's all right. Sorry about it. Maybe during the break I'll play that video. It's about the new technology that's available now for the masses. Anyway, the last mega trend that the world talks about today are the changing values and attitudes. Now, each generation, sociologists tell us, acquired a set of values and expectations that were different from the generation before. And then you get to see, these respected authors tell us, that every generation attempts to reverse what was the worst characteristic of the older generation. So whatever was not good as we perceive now, the present generation will reverse it. And we get to see this so much, not just in our church, but we also get to see this in society as a whole. So the values keep changing. Like take for example, today family practitioners are telling us that cohabitation has become the in thing, particularly in metros. There are more people who want to just cohabit rather than marry. I met a young couple just 3 days ago who came up to me and said, we want to have our baby baptized. I said, oh, wonderful. And I said, but you don't belong to my parish. And I knew the girl. And she said, yes, I belong to another parish. I said, see, I can baptize you, but I need a no objection letter from your parish. My parish priest won't give it to me. I said, why would he not give it to you? I mean, he's a nice guy. Is it because you've not been in church for a long time? No, we live in Chennai. All right, but you can still get it. I mean, just go talk to him. He should be fine, and he wouldn't have a problem. So he said, okay, I'll go talk. And what do I do if he does not give? I said, it'd be hard for me to baptize without his permission. You don't belong to my parish. But I can talk to him, or, if you see that he is really not going to give it to you and giving you a hard time, you can talk to the bishop if you want to. Okay, we'll talk to the bishop. I said, wait a minute. Before you talk to the bishop, where were you married? The girl looks at me. I said, you're married in church, right? No, Father. So you're married somewhere else? No, we made a promise to each other. Oh, thank you very much. I said, what we should normally tell them, it's kind of hard. I said, why don't we start working on the both of you and get your marital relationship in order, and then we'll think about baptizing the baby. I said, the baby is perfectly fine, God's child, God will take care of it. Let's take care of you. We'll come back, Father. They went and never came back. Now I'm wondering, now this is not just an isolated case. In my parish is a economically poor parish. Almost every other couple has not been married in church. If you come on second Tuesdays of the evening mass, we will have on a regular basis average of 15 to 20 people who receive, the sacraments of baptism, communion, and confirmation, and after mass there is rectification of marriages. Regularly, every month we prepare them, for a good 30 days, every day catechism and every day, instructions, and then this happens. Now, this is something that we have to be concerned about. Now, I'm going to stop with this part, and I will come back later in the third session to discuss how we can work on these and how we can draw from the inspiration and the learning of, eminent people around the world to address these four storms in the life of our youth. Now, I want to give you some facts and figures from our own country and from the youth of our land. Now, the Young Leaders World Summit India Edition 2016 told us 72% of India's population is below 40. 47% of Indians are under the age of 20. 10% of the world's population is an Indian under the age of 25. So 1 in 10 youth around the world is an Indian under the age of 25. These are big, big numbers for us to ponder on. Now, with such a large population of youth, implications are many. Most importantly, for all of us, servant leaders of the church, what we invest in youth of today will definitely influence the destiny of family, society, and the country and the world. We need to keep that in mind. We are all so eager and ready to invest crores in building churches and building, anything else that we want to. But if I went and asked, for a youth program, please give me 50,000 rupees, all of a sudden we are a poor diocese. Thank God, I didn't work under Archbishop Peter. Bishop Bernard Morris was all for youth. Just never said no. So I can never complain. But I have been all over the country for different youth meetings and conventions and conferences. Everywhere youth directors will say, no funds, no funds. This is a big struggle, big struggle. We need to make investment. I'm just talking about monetary investments, but in terms of time and resources and personnel as well. Now, I'll start with the basics. And this is huge. I'm not a big fan of Chetan Bhagat. I don't even like his writing, I'm sorry. But I took what he said on Twitter, and more than 20,000 people, when I extracted it, had already commented on it and participated in what he had said. He said, Indian youth don't want to be pakoda walas and chowkidars. It's such a powerful statement coming from a man who supports Modi left, right, and center. Now, we're looking at joblessness, and these are difficult times for our youth. How difficult, two questions were asked in the research. How difficult is it for an average graduate to get a job? Average graduate, a whopping 87% said it was difficult to very difficult. Difficult to very difficult. I see many faces here, and I know you're all, associated with big institutions of eminence in Bangalore and elsewhere. And you know the story of what is happening to our youth today. If we are to believe what the Engineering Graduate Association said 2 years ago, they said 2 lakh engineering graduates went without a job in 2017. 2018, 1,77,000 graduates, engineering graduates went without a job. No wonder Shashi Tharoor in the parliament said the other day, our engineering graduates are unemployable. So something's going wrong. What is the starting salary expectation for an average graduate? Around 61% said 5,000 to 15,000 a month. This is recent. Gone are the times when youth were flaunting big paychecks and perks that came in just like that. Companies were flying them in and out of the country. They were giving them, allowances in dollars and euros and pounds. Today, none of that is happening. In fact, everybody is taking a pay cut. Last week, one of the animators of the youth group came up to me very sadly. He just had a baby boy day before yesterday and said, my job is on the line. And I don't know if I can, find another. Please pray for me. I'm already on the bench and I know the axe will fall. What do you do? And yesterday, my nephew, that's my niece's husband, was telling me, I was asking him how's the job going? He works for a good company in Bangalore. And he says, keep my fingers crossed, Mama, he says. Anytime, they have no mercy. They'll extract everything they want from you. And when they have to give you the pink slip, they'll give it with absolutely no mercy. So that's the problem of our youth today. Now, the latest report on politics and society between elections 2017 and 19, released by Aziz Premji University and Lokniti CSDS, suggests there is a complete distrust by youth of elites. This appears to be a resounding theme among all the respondents. 60% of them, those that were interviewed, said that the elite are the problem, not the minorities or the migrants. Now this has become a big problem for the government. The minorities and the migrants. And that is why all these laws are being enacted. Now, the sentiment is stronger among younger Indians, where 61% of those below the age of 35 are saying the same. So which means we are in trouble. What happens to these youngsters who don't have a job and who have all the time in the world in their hands? In my parish, there are hundreds of youngsters who don't have a job. You know, there is a Tamil word called vetti, you know. Sedana vettidani means you're such a bum, you're such a useless bum. There are youngsters who just hang out on the streets doing absolutely nothing. And then there are kids who come to me during the day when I'm just like outside my office and say, Father, do you have anything to do in the parish? I try finding something to do, not to pay them, but just to keep them engaged. You know, I've told my assistant, like, if you're going out and if you find one of these youngsters, take them with you. Let them accompany you. Take them shopping, take them for a mass, take them whatever. In fact, this morning I left very early. They were all busy planning. And as soon as I told them that tomorrow I'm not going to be here and I'm going out to Carmelarum side, there were at least 4 or 5 who said, Father, can we come with you? I said, yeah, I would love to take you, but then you have the youth day, so you'll have a whole day of activities and you have to decorate and stuff. So make a pick. You want that or to come with me? So they all opted out because they'd lose points, if they didn't show up to decorate and to clean and all of that stuff. So there are a lot of them jobless. The next stat I want to present to you from August 29th, 2018, Times Now Network reported 40% of Mumbai's youth are depressed and only 13% of the parents know about it. 20 to 30 age bracket is depressed and suffers from poor self-image. I'll just read the stats. Among men, 38% said they feel depressed all the time and 22% said they are down sometimes. Among women, the corresponding numbers were 49% said all the time and 22% respectively down sometimes. At the same time though, 42% men and 32% women have not taken any proactive steps to pull them out of the condition. They've not talked to anybody, they've never sought medical help, they've never seen a counselor, they've never even addressed the fact that I'm feeling down, I'm feeling kind of like lost, I think I'm depressed. No, they don't want to. They're in denial. The Niman study in 2016 said, when they interviewed 20,000 youth, 41.5% said that the most important goal in their life was to be happy. Now what is scary is that these 42% are saying, I'm not happy. Look at the next one. 30.4% believe probably that they'll be happy if they are rich. What is most comforting and most inspiring is that there are 22% of our youngsters who are saying, I want to make somebody's life better. Such an altruistic attitude, and this is what keeps them all going. 6.3% want a long life. God bless them. They don't know what they're getting into. The survey, for which 4,000 men and 4,000 women were interviewed over a 6-month period by Porter Institute of Education survey, said body image is a concern among the youth, as 80% almost are not very happy with their looks. 68% of the men said that they were not happy. And if they had an option, they would consider plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery. So we are having a vast majority of our youth who don't like themselves. They look at themselves in the mirror and say, In terms of relationship, merely 2% of the women and 8% of the men said that they were educated about sex by their parents. The rest of them depended on friends, books, pornography, websites, and videos. Now, this sex education has become such a sensitive topic. You've had, all kinds of problems erupt because some school or college, took the initiative to educate the young. But today, what are we doing? And what do they best know? I had a young girl who called me up at 11:30 in the night about 2 years ago, and I didn't know this girl. She got my number from somebody, and there was a repeated call, so I picked up to answer. And then she said, Father, you don't know me, but I want to talk to you in confidence. I said, sure, you can. How did you get my number? She said, my best friend gave it to me. And I said, do you know me? She said, yes, I saw you in a fete. And I said, yes, how can I help you? And then she begins to talk and she tells me about what is happening in her life. To cut a whole long story short, she had a boyfriend who was, commissioned to go to the UK for a 2-year project. And so this guy and her were getting close, and he had promised that she was the one for him and all of that stuff. As a parting gift, she told me, in her words, I gifted him my virginity. And I didn't know what would happen, and I didn't pay attention to anything. And 3 months later, she realized that she was pregnant. And I said, nobody told you about, missing your periods and all of that, so you could have, figured out something was going on in your body? She says, no. And I said, how old are you? What are you doing now? She says, I'm in 2nd year degree. 2nd year degree, and she didn't know that she was pregnant. And I said, did you have any kind of symptoms? Like, did you feel nausea? Did you feel like, heavy and tired and, kind of like mood swings? Yeah, but I thought I had food poisoning. How old is she? 21? 21? Yeah. So, look at the Others Demand study on youth, sex and sexuality and marriage. Our country has conservative youth, trust me. 64% of them want to marry a virgin. This is a huge thing, cultural thing. Then, premarital sex is no longer a big issue in India. 56% of them are sleeping around. Where are these 65% going to find virgins? %44 are okay with live-in relationships. Homosexuality, it's no big deal. It's acceptable. 37%. Divorce is not an option. But today, divorce rates are steadily climbing. In the US, they say 1 in every 2 marriages ends up in a divorce. In India, forget about triple talaq. So many of them are separated. So many of them. Like, if I looked out at my congregation, I see a whole lot of young mothers with their babies. And sometimes I ask them, hey, enga un purusan? And they'll say, he left me and is gone. So how are you taking care of my mother? My father helped me. So many of them. Now, they don't come under the numbers of divorce. They're not even divorced. They're not even separated legally. They're just separated, that's all. And these are young. Some of them are as young as 17, 16, 18. And this you can see in most of these poor neighborhoods of Bangalore. You can probably ask Father Praveen. He was the parish priest of St. Anthony's Friary. There's a whole big area there. Or if there are redemptorists here, you can ask them about Holy Ghost Parish. It's the same story. And this is something that we have to think about as well. 22% of Indian youth, this is about values, believe cheating doesn't have to be just physical or emotional. The most worrying part about this survey is not that there are folks who have no qualms in admitting that cheating is in a relationship does not bother them, which is 22%, but the stunning number of people who said, can't say, when they had an opportunity to say no. Which means moral education is an all-time low. Nobody's educating them in morality, in what is right and wrong, or in ethical behavior. What Indian youth feel about relationships? This is important. From the youth survey by Hindustan and Mars, for the young, marriage is not a promise for life and cheating is permissible, but family continues to be an anchor. The latest shows marriage is not what it used to be. Only 22.4% of the men and 19.2% of the women polled think that their current relationship will go the distance, which means they'll die married. More than half of the men, 51.6%, think it will not though the women naysayers are little less, 44.2. Which means the very fabric of our society that, stood us good in good times and bad is now being shaken rudely by the changing values and attitudes among our young. If we were to talk about addictions, and particularly in mental health today, the biggest addiction is internet addiction. The number of people visiting the All India Institute of Medical Science, the behavioral addiction clinic with complaints of internet addiction has almost doubled since the launch of the facility 2 years ago. Today, almost every youth that I meet, if they are honest, admits that they have an internet addiction problem. And we're talking about social media addiction, we are talking about porn addiction, we are talking about, texting and sexting. These are realities that confront our youth. The respondents of this particular survey, PODA survey, of the total youth surveyed, 79% of women and 69% of men said that they were on some or all social media platforms. These 80% of women and almost 70% of men said they were on all social media platforms. Almost 50% of them spent between 5 and 10 hours on social media daily. 5 to 10 hours. Even if it is 2 hours, can you imagine the amount of man hours lost on social media? And what was the main reason why they were doing it? Wanting to make friends, porn. Those were the only two. Connect one with another and then find some sexual entertainment. Professor R.K. Chadav, the HOD of the Department of Psychiatry and National Drug Dependency Treatment Center, said 20 to 25% of Indian youth suffer from some kind of mental disorder, with depression, anxiety, mood disorders, and substance abuse being prevalent among them. Which means almost 1/4 of our youth that we work with on a regular basis are suffering from some kind of mental illness. World Health Organization today estimates that about 80% of the world's population will, at some point in their life, go through depression. Depression is the illness of the 21st century. Just like every century had an illness, The 20th century, it was cancer. 19th century, AIDS. 18th century, leprosy. Heart attack never figured as a disease of the century, really, now that we talk about it. Yeah. Pardon me? Yeah. So, the recently concluded National Mental Health Survey of India estimated that the prevalence of mental disorders in the age group of 18 to 29 is at 7.4%, excluding tobacco use, and lifetime prevalence of 9.54%. 94%. About half of the mental illnesses are known to begin, this is important for us, by the age of 14, and 3/4 by mid-20s, it is said. I was at one of the colleges here in Bangalore sometime back, just a few weeks back, and the principal was telling me when I presented some numbers to their faculty, he said, "Father, you're telling us about these numbers, but it's much, much more." And I looked at her and, I had this smirk on my face and saying, isn't that awful? I mean, that we recognize that there is a serious problem in our youth, and we are beginning to identify it because we can see the symptomology. Anju Darwin, a professor, highlighted that substance abuse disorders among the youth, it's not only the use of nicotine, cigarettes and whatever, and alcohol arising in the country among young males and females. Newer drugs are available to our youngsters today like never before, and they are innovating today, with anything available to them. Sometime back in my own parish, I caught this young boy, he's probably in the 7th standard at that time, about 2 years ago. I had asked him to get me a bottle of petrol to, clean my cassock and something else that had some oil stains. So they went and got the petrol, and here's this little boy opening it up and closing his one nostril and sniffing. I walked in and I said, "What are you doing?" And he's not stopping, he's just going on. And I just pulled the bottle and splashed, petrol around and then put a lid on it. I'm looking at him and I'm saying, "Why do you do that?" And I know why he's doing it. And he's looking at me and saying, "Feels good. Feels good." The same boy, the lady in the office tells me, "Father, he's always stealing whiteners from the desk. We have just one bottle of whitener to, erase our records, family marriage records when we make an error." And she says, "He's the fellow who's been stealing it." And I wonder what he's doing with it. I know what he's doing with it. 14, 15-year-old boy, No, not less, maybe 11, 12. 11 or 12. Youth suicide. Suicides in India, the data shows from 17th October 18, the nation accounts for over a third of the world's annual female suicides and nearly a fourth of male suicides, a significant rise from 1990. So what is the reason? Now look at the chart. In 1990, female suicides were 25.3% and 36 in 2016. Male 18.7 and 24. Now look at India's share of the world's suicide. 16.4 and 17.8 in 2016. So if 100 people are dying, on a given day, almost 18 of them are Indians. Now this crisis, suicide crisis, is something that we must also stop and think. For both sexes in India, suicide was the leading cause of death among those who were aged between 15 and 39, while globally it was the third most common cause of death. Now some key facts about suicide. While it's the second leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds globally, failure in exam alone resulted in 2,413 suicides by students in 2016, which means it adds up to almost 7 every day, accounting for 25% of student suicides. Big numbers. The NCRB, in its 2015 data, made a shocking revelation that in India, one student commits suicide every hour. By the time I'm done with this presentation, one has sadly killed himself or herself. That's the state. The top reasons for suicide. The numbers of suicide. Family problems are 23.7%. Illnesses, 21. And when we talk about illnesses, we are talking seriously about mental illnesses and then physical ailments. The common mode of suicide continues to be consumption of poison, hanging a close second, and self-immolation has come down quite dramatically down. There were a lot of cases in years gone by where they would jump before a train or, get themselves into an accident, jump in front of a bus or throw themselves down from a bridge or from a high-rise building or set them on fire. But that has come down. What is the concern of our youth? Development, law and order, governance and corruption are the top concerns. Now, just take a look at what the concerns are. And if we want to look at what is happening in India, all these things are the ones that are not paid attention at all by the government. And we still wonder how they could muster such a huge mandate. These are the young talking to us and telling us these are our concerns. Now, continuing on with the youth concerns, the Indian Army remains to be the most trusted institution, 88%. The judiciary too seems to be ranking very high. The election commission, rightly so, is slipping in the eyes of the common man. The report also says political parties are the least trusted institutions in India. A study also found that 50% of the people said that they prefer to approach a leader from the same caste or religion as themselves. So which means elections are won on the basis of this, and political parties are quite aware of it. The institution of marriage remains largely intact for the young. 74% of them are saying, and 72% of the women are saying, that their relationship with their parents is either close or very close, which is wonderful because this has implications for our ministry to youth as well. We'll talk about it in the third session. Friends come a distant second. For a long time, youth workers believed that peers were all important to young people. But today studies are indicating they are important, but not as important as parents and families. So we need to keep that in mind as well. Friends come a second distance. Only 36% of the men and women say that they are either close or very close to their best friends. Which means, in spite of social media and all these 5,000 friends that they are allowed to have on Facebook, friendship is still not a big thing for our youngsters today. The two old bugbears of Indian society, caste and homosexuality, continue to be so. More than half of the men, 55%, do not approve of intercaste marriage, and more than 60% look down on homosexuality. And still, it's an accepted form of sexual preference for our young. It's not much different about women. 57% do not approve of intercaste marriage, and nearly 65% of them frown upon homosexuality. The youth are telling us today only Superman can save India. 50% of our youngsters, which means they're almost giving up and looking at our country and saying, God bless India. Well, I've given you an overview of what studies are telling us about youngsters today. I want to conclude this presentation by telling you a couple of things that NIMANS presented to us in terms of understanding the people that we work with. There are 3 numbers they presented, and this you can keep in mind. They said if you have an audience of 100 young people, 20%, 19.8% of them are going to be restless and agitated. So 20 of the youth in a group of 100 are going to be restless and agitated. So you'll see them squirming in their chairs, turning around and fidgety. And then they went on to say 17% of that 100 youth are unhappy and disinterested in life. So you're looking at another 20% that's not happy. And then they went further to say that 17% that is disinterested and unhappy are so because of pressures and stress. Which means if they are stressed, they can never be happy, which is true of all of us too as adults. I mean, when we face some levels of stress and some pressure to perform or to deliver, we're going to be tense and we're not going to be happy and we're not going to enjoy the small pleasures of life. And that leads us to the third numbers that NIMANS presented and told us that almost 40% of youngsters, about 40 in a group of 100 are, pay attention to this, not interested in what you're saying. So almost half the audience are like, yeah, say whatever. I don't care. In the last 11 years that I worked with the youth, in our archdiocese, and I had, the good fortune and a chance, literally, to travel across the country and be with youth from different parts of the country and the world, I found something, and it's very saddening. In Bangalore, if we have a charismatic prayer service, a praise and worship, a youth retreat, a youth mass, a youth seminar, a youth workshop, you will invariably see almost half of them attending all of them. almost half of them. They will be at every youth event. If I have a cricket tournament, on a given day, I will be able to draw 3,000 plus youth, floating population of course. There will be only 11 that will play, but they will bring at least 50, 60 to root for them. Passions run high. We have what we call the ICYM Cup, where they get a prize money and, bragging rights about being the best soccer team. 2,000 youth easily. We had a youth convention for youth here at Palace Grounds. We attracted 7,000 youth. That was the biggest number that we ever had in Bangalore. Different parishes have youth masses, 100, 120 max. Holy Ghost has a regular youth mass, so does St. Anthony's Friary. There are other places too. 40, 50, 60, 70. We have a cult fest. The entire auditorium is packed to capacity. There's no sitting room at all. We have no chairs. We carpet the entire area. They are all standing, screaming their lungs out and dancing away to glory. Thrilled. And it will go on until 11, 11:30 in the night, till the cops come and throw us all out. Thousands of them. Where are they when it comes to faith? Is there a problem? I was thinking about this, and I was discussing this with a couple of my friends who are also into youth ministry. And one of them looked at me and said, "Do you think our youth are losing faith?" And I looked back and I said, "I think so." And he said, "Why would you say that?" I said, "I think atheism and agnosticism is creeping into our youth today. Not to the levels that we want to believe, but it is. For many today, youngsters, when you ask them, "Why don't you come to church?" they say, "I don't know." "Do you believe in God?" "I really don't know." "Are you spiritual?" "What do you mean?" "Are you religious?" "No, not really." "Do you pray?" That's a good question, Father Paul. When was the last time you prayed?" "Oh, God help us. Just before I wrote my exams." "And do you think God will answer your prayer?" "Well, I don't know, but everybody said I should and I prayed." It leaves me wondering, asking the same old question that youth workers have been asking, for a very long time. Have we failed our youth? Have we failed our youth? Today, as I stand before you to make this presentation and give you all these numbers and facts and figures, I have come to realize that youth today are drawn by personalities. I mean, it's sad, but it is true. I've had youngsters who have come up to me and said, "Father Paul, that was a kick-ass sermon. I don't know what that meant, but I know what it means. I don't know what I said that kicked his ass, literally. That means kick his bottom." Okay, I don't know why. But there are times youth have come to me and said, "Father Paul, you could do better." I like their honesty. That's what drives them. And then there are times, this is not just about Father Paul, by the way, it's all about you. Add your name in. There are times youngsters will come and ask me, "Which mass are you saying?" I said, "To stay away." "No, we want to come." The United States Bishops' Conference had a study 3 years ago, and they said the most successful parishes were successful because of their pastors. So the onus is on all of us. It's about relationships, really. It simply is. For youngsters, little things matter. I've been teaching, for a good part of my priestly life now, almost 17, 18 years. And I've never had students who come to me and told me, "Father Paul, you're a phenomenal teacher. You make the most complicated theories of psychopathology so simple and easy to understand. Wow. No. They come and say, thank you, Father Paul, for that hug you gave me. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for that smile. Thank you for checking on me. No wonder Strauss and Strauss, in their phenomenal research on youth work and youth psychology and therapy, said there are 3 R's that spell success for any kind of youth work. And the 3 R's are relationship, relationship, relationship. And I'm beginning to see that, as I'm growing older. And relationships do matter for youngsters today. Just on the 7th of August, a young girl, 17 years old, was confirmed and she received her first Holy Communion. A few days prior to that, I baptized her. Her mom and dad were Catholic. Her mom died a tragic death about 3 months back. She poured petrol on herself and set her on place because she couldn't tolerate and stand the harassment of her husband. The girl now lives with her father and she takes care of her younger sister and her older brother. She tells me she's a great cook because her mother taught her so. She comes every morning to church, not from us, but after her father leaves, after she has cooked for her father, who goes to work, and for her older brother, who's not doing anything but wasting time away at home, and her younger sister who goes to school. At 9:15 she comes. The only reason she comes is to see me. And she tells me, Father, you're my friend, no? I said, yes, I am your friend. You're my best friend. I am your best friend, and I'll always be your best friend. And she goes around and tells everybody there that's working, Father's my best friend. And one lady told her, the lady who works in the office, Father's my best friend too. So she comes up to me and says, Father, best means only one, no? Onne one dana best friend. Avanga solrango. It matters. I'm going to conclude with a social psychology research which came up with a theory. And the theory is a one-liner. It's called the looking glass self theory. I don't know if for some of you psychologists and sociologists you would know. Looking glass is a mirror. The theory states this: you will only become what the most significant person in your life believes you are. You will only become what the most significant person in your life believes you are. Youth work can be successful if you become that significant person in the young person's life. And they will become what you believe. But you must become the significant person. And we can. We really can. It takes a little bit of effort and a lot of love. Am I on time? Shall we call it a day for now? I'll take a tea break. I'll give you